I expect news around The Last of Us 2 to be winding down by the end of this weekend, there's a couple of big stories I wanted to cover before the end of the week. It appears that The Last of Us 2 subreddit has turned against them, and also a massive online petition has been started about the game's story. That's right. The Last of Us 2 petition demands dramatic story alterations. Can you talk? I don't think so. Thousands have already signed it. The Last of Us Part 2 storyline has gone down like a shambler on the end of an incendiary shell with some fans. So we suppose it is inevitable that someone would launch a petition to have that plot revised. One such change.org petition listing has attracted 14,000 signatures at the time of typing, as it declares the title a disrespect for every fan that waited 7 years for the sequel. But what about game journalists? I thought they were all just phobes. I thought everyone that didn't like the game was just phobic. By the way, huge shout out to everyone who has been subscribing this week. I cover a wide variety of topics, not just video games, and I hope today will be the day I earn your subscription. There's a little red button below the video that says subscribe, and I hope you'll click it. Well, the post is laden with spoilers. It describes the story as, quote, extremely bad, and appears to take particular issue with the fate of a particular character. We don't recommend clicking on it if you haven't finished the game yet, or indeed are of sound mind, but you can view the whole thing or some interesting comments on the subject here. Let's take a look how the petition's going. Whoa! Almost 31,000 signatures already. Justice for Joel. These are just haters though, right? They don't like the LGBTQ themes. That's all these 30,000 bigots. The Last of Us Part 2 delivered excellent gameplay, great graphics, mechanics, and phenomenal weapon play. However, the storyline was an absolute mess. They ended our favorite character and forced us to use a character that ended Joel. And we're supposed to connect with Abby throughout half of the game, and the main character isn't even Ellie. We want Naughty Dog to remake the game with the scenes that they provided at every trailer, with Joel not rudely model swapped him for flashbacks. We need a remake for the story, or at least a DLC with a different ending. This was a massive disrespect for every fan of the Last of Us franchise that had to wait 7 years for the sequel. We deserve better than this. We paid $60 and we are entitled to make a change. Now, some journalists will take that word entitled and use it in a negative light, saying, oh, gamer entitlement, here we go. They don't like the game. Well, you know, if you pay for something, you're entitled to a good product. There's no guarantee you're going to like it, and unfortunately in the video game world, you can't return a video game simply because you don't like the story, unless maybe it's on Steam and you get through the story really quickly. But you have a few updates. Point taken from another petition. I have their permission to repost. The amazing petition can be found here. Here's a point that was taken from the petition that I posted in the link above. The number one reason so far for the negative reaction from fans was how Druckmann sadistically executed Joel. By spitting on his corpse, Neil Druckmann spat on the souls of thousands of fans, thereby disrespecting us. And believe us, it doesn't matter whether the main character was ended by someone who is gay or trans or an atheist or Christian or Asian or African American. The most terrible thing is the way that it happened. The focus was on humiliation and disrespect for the protagonist. But it seems Druckmann just wanted to settle a score with the character. But Joel represents a loving parent who is not willing to lose a child for the second time. We love Joel for who Joel is as a character. Writer is trying to make us empathize with the new character, Abby, who is guided only by hatred and the desire to take revenge, and make us believe she is the victim of circumstance. All his attempts to demonize Joel make no sense. This character was never full of hatred and senseless thirst for bad behavior, unlike Abby, who ended him in a brutal way because of her own hatred and was not able to forgive him even after Joel saved her life. Again, Go check out the petition for more points, way better points than mine. And you can read some of these comments. Some of the top comments. All we wanted was a sequel about Joel and Ellie's relationship going further like father and daughter, and playing them both once again, which was the point of the first game. Not a lesbian story and playing as a hated character. Here's the second top comment. Ending Joel was not a great idea. It makes me cry whenever I remember that movement when Abby ends him. Justice for Joel. Joel Lives Matter. Well-designed game that deserved a good script. The writing was a slap in the mouth to every person anticipating this game. I do not want to be forced to play as baby girl's father deleter. Whether it's a guy or a girl, gay or straight, white or of color, even an alien. The story is trash. I hate the storyline. As a father of young daughters, I connected with Joel. I feel like I was ended. I mean, I understand. I understand. And even now, The Last of Us 2 subreddit has turned against the sequel. Ironically, the last place most fans or even haters of The Last of Us 2 want to go is the game's dedicated subreddit. And that's for a good reason. Reddit's largest subreddit, dedicated to The Last of Us Part 2, has completely turned against the PS4 sequel, and its users have hated the game for numerous reasons for a while. Normally, subreddits dedicated to a game and named for a single game are echo chambers of praise and optimism leading up to the game's title, launch, and thereafter. Sometimes, though, users devolve those spaces into exact opposite, spending their collective time voicing their displeasure with a once beloved game and its developers. But no other community has abandoned the original quite like The Last of Us. Along with brutal and chilling and all the other well-known adjectives the critics and fans perpetually ascribe to the game, The Last of Us 2 is widely described as controversial. That descriptor's not off the mark. And while the game's controversiality being reflected in its Metacritic scores, the aggregate of over 100 critic reviews spell top marks for the sequel as part of a perceived game industry conspiracy to boost AAA sales, while tens of thousands of disapproving user reviews openly attributed to review brigading or otherwise dent The Last of Us 2's success is r/The Last of Us 2, which has been the game's most vocal community of detractors since the game plot leaked in April. In this forum, the diatribe against its focus is centered around players' denouncement of the game's story, namely the on-screen passing of Joel, at the hands of a new playable character Abby, and protagonist Ellie's ultimate refusal to exact revenge. The substantive critique on its own is understandable, but it's joined with by a chorus of players who vocabulary regarding the game doesn't much extend beyond, quote, forced agenda and thinly, if at all, veiled hate speech against the game's themes and characters. The second group of weirdly preoccupied by Abby's musculature and gender. That is, when they're not railing against Ellie's homosexuality and working their favorite pejorative for Naughty Dog creator Neil Druckmann into wherever it fits, link below. Bad writers upvote this so Neil Druckmann can show up in the results every time you search for bad writers. It's about time D&D had some company. How about some of these memes? You ain't part of Joel and Ellie's story. I was promised. My mom doesn't... Oh, that's a little spicy. That's a little spicy. There is no agenda, guys. And here's a pride flag. I don't know if there's a pride flag or a trans flag. I've seen stuff going on. I mean, it wouldn't be unrealistic if you were going through all the houses in Seattle to find a pride flag. But again, it's all put together, you know? And a lot of these aren't even that popular. This has 160 upvotes. It's not even that highly upvoted. We're all upset not because of trans or whatever in the game, because this is awesome characters taken from us far too soon. Thanks for being such a dope character. Say hi to Sarah for us. Justice for Joel. Now that has 1,200 upvotes. So they picked some of the more, I don't know, agenda-fitting posts and ignored the fact that the top post they posted was simply somebody who was upset about Joel. Essentially, the undefined overlap between players who are only unhappy with the story and forever bitter bigots that fight for ideological footholds wherever they can on Reddit has intrinsically tied a vocal anger to The Last of Us Part 2 Oh my, here we go. To alt-right political people. This banal hatred has latched itself in a genuine disdain for the game's plot on the subreddit since almost immediately after the leaks, as evidenced from popular posts like this one, which apply the now poorly aged adage, get woke, go broke. Ha! What do you mean poorly aged? Didn't Nike just lose $800 million in Q4 last year? I get that a lot of people are looking at the sales of this game and saying, ha, get wrecked. 4 million copies sold. We win, you lose. Well, it's a sequel to a game that sold 17 million copies. If this game doesn't sell significantly more copies than the original, don't you think that's a huge failure? There are more people now who have PlayStation 4s than did have 7 years ago. There are more people now playing video games than were playing 7 years ago. There's more people watching streamers now than there were 7 years ago. There's more information, more hype, more marketing than there was 7 years ago. If this game doesn't sell 25 million copies, it's going to be a failure. I don't know how else to describe it. That isn't to take away that it's sold a 10, 15, 20 million copies. I expect it to do at least 10, but if you sell 15 million and the original game sold 17, who's calling that a W? I don't think any investor or any company would say that's success. They would probably look back and say, well, what did we do to alienate those several million customers the second time around? We spent way more money producing the game, marketing the game, and we didn't sell as many copies. So we'll have to see. I talked about it in the first video of the day. The long tail for sales on this game is going to tell people whether or not the game is still amazing, right? A lot of people bought The Last of Us 1 because people just kept talking about how amazing it was. We'll see. We'll see. If it sells 20 million copies, I'll congratulate Neil personally. I hope you enjoyed this video. We'll talk to you real soon.